Hey, this is Dirk Nowitzki, and you're listening to the Mavs Step Back podcast.
I like this, TK. I like that. Yeah, it's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Dirk get the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, get tragic. Luka with the ball, yeah, get nasty. He'll drop 30, don't gotta ask him. Got Kristaps, coach at the Adam, I spaz like Dallas. I thought I'm rapping, God. If Luka shoot the ball, you know that it's cash. But my boy still looking to pass. Now he got my boy Kristaps, looking like Dirk and Nash in the gap. They just want a ring, wanna fill the gap on your team head. I ain't talking hats, dang, go relax. Still at the champs, defense still coming with the best flow. The man's the best.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Step Back, a Mavs podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined as always by my co-host and Sports Illustrated Dallas basketball colleague, Matt Galatson. And on this eve of Dallas Mavericks basketball, Matt, how about you go ahead and introduce our guest for tonight?
Okay, everybody, this is a record holder for our all-time most listened episode. He also is the host of the Will Cain show on ESPN. It's Will Cain. Will, how you doing?
I'm the record holder of most listened to podcasts?
Of all time. All 41 episodes.
Well, SOB, I'm happy and proud. I really am.
And you are also the guest on our 41st episode, which, of course, this being a Mavs. Yeah, it's a huge episode, so we figured we'd do it big.
I'm proud. Thank you, boys.
No, so Will, before we get started on basketball talk, I figured, this is a very big weekend for the both of us, and I needed to ask, is the Dak Prescott Carson Wentz debate finally over?
Do you guys think I'm overdoing that a little bit?
I love it personally.
I actually agree with you, so I don't think you're overdoing it at all.
Look, I'll tell you, this is motivated out of a couple of different places. Number one, I truly believe it. I don't even think it's a close debate, and I don't even know what the Carson Wentz stands, the Carson Wentz fans, the Carson Wentz choir has to preach on anymore. I do not know at this point what you rely upon besides draft status and scouting report. Dak wins on everything, so I believe it because it's true. Second, I do get a little kick out of being the only guy at ESPN that says this stuff, and everybody else tells me I'm crazy or a hot taker or a contrarian, and just taking names and remembering everybody that says Carson is better than Dak, because I just feel like I've been vindicated, man.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. To be honest, I was watching that game, and it's really not even close, in my opinion. I used to think it was a little closer, but that game just served as – it doesn't get any, more clear than that after that just dominant performance by Dak and Philly just, crying all the way to the locker room. It was really wonderful to see.
And look, I'm a Cowboys fan too, and I really enjoyed that win, but I think what I enjoyed more than anything else was watching Luka give Jalen Brunson crap in the one of the suites that they were staying in. That was really fun. But like we mentioned, Will, this is our 41st episode, our Dirk episode, I guess, and the Mavs, they're gonna open the 2019-2020 season tomorrow night at home against the Washington Wizards. It's going to be the first season without Dirk since 1998. I mean, what are your initial thoughts on the Mavs opening their season without Dirk for the first time in forever? I mean, what's that going to be like?
It's sad. The only balance to the sadness is obviously the optimism and excitement we all have about Luka and Porzingis. But really, Luka, and I don't mean to disrespect Porzingis there. We're all excited about Porzingis, but Luka feels like the heir apparent. He is the heir apparent to the Dirk legacy in Dallas, and that's the only thing that softens the blow a little bit. But it's not how I envisioned it ending, and it's not my story to write. It's Dirk's story to write, so don't get me wrong. There's no negativity in saying this. It's just I always had this vision in my head that Dirk would adopt this role where he would come off the bench, he would be the leader, and he would be a three-point bombing specialist, and his game would age really well in that way. And it would be something valuable to a championship level team. And the Mavericks aren't there yet, and Dirk's done already. But I just thought that would be the end of Dirk's career. Like, that's the way to cap it off, like the 6th, 7th man on a championship team. And I hoped it would be, obviously, in Dallas. But like I said, it's not my story to write. And I love that Dirk is independent. Some say I have a little bit of an independent streak. I value what he does and how he does his life. He's not really here for how everybody else wants it to end. It's how he wanted it to end.
Yeah, and it's not like he didn't have the opportunity to go to different places either. He had a lot of different opportunities. He could have, chosen to finish out his career a different way, and he could have chased a ring, but he always said getting that title in 2011 pretty much cemented that he would never go anywhere. And I mean, it's just amazing the career and the continuity he put together in Dallas. And like you said, it's sad to see him go, but I mean, Dirk's going to do Dirk no matter what. And he's not crying over it. He's enjoying the family. He's getting to do whatever he wants to do now. So it was a good time, but it's over now, and I'm ready to get things started here with Luka and KP and see where they can take this thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. So obviously, I'm going to the game tomorrow night, and I have never been to a Mavericks game where Dirk hasn't at least been in the building, and I don't know if he's going to be there or not. So it's going to be very weird, going into the locker room and him not being there, and not seeing him come in to roaring applause. And but like Will said, it's very encouraging what we saw in the preseason and what we've seen with Luka so far, and with KP and all that. So it's just a really exciting time.
It's one last point to tie the ribbon on the Dirk observations. First of all, Matt, and I'm sure this applies to Dalton as well, you guys are so young and so blessed to have only seen the Mavericks in the Dirk era. You telling me you've never been, it was then Reunion Arena, to see the 3Js, or you never saw Roy Tarpley, or you didn't see the magical run to the Western Conference Finals with Aguirre and Blackman? Those were the days, boys. Let me tell you, those were the days.
Okay, actually,
last point on Dirk is what I wanted to say is, I think I may have said this the last time I was on your pod. I'm not sure, but I think this is one of the biggest praises and testaments to Dirk that you could give. I am a Cowboys fan more than a Mavs fan. I'm both, right? But if I'm ranking my Dallas fandom and what I'm most dedicated to, it goes Cowboys, then Mavs, then Rangers and Stars in some order. And it's a Cowboys town. I'm not alone in that respect. It's a Cowboys state. And the guys that are heroes of the Dallas Cowboys are the tops of the totem pole, the Roger Staubachs, the Troy Aikmans, the Emmitt Smiths. And I'm here to tell you that I believe, because of what you said, Dalton, because of the loyalty, because of the one hard-earned title, because of the character of Dirk, I really don't know, and I can't speak obviously for the whole city, but I'm a born and bred, dyed-in-the-wool Dallas sports fan. I don't know that I have more love for any Dallas athlete in its history than I do for Dirk Nowitzki. In a Cowboys town, in a football city, I think Dirk is the most beloved sports figure that I can think of.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's absolutely true, because if you start a Mount Rushmore of Dallas athletes, everybody's going to start with Dirk. There's no question about it. I don't think there's anybody else you could start it with. Maybe you can make an argument for like Roger Staubach or one of the guys from the 90s Cowboys teams, but odds are you're going to pick Dirk.
Well, let's do it. Hold on, let's do it. I'll at least nominate our four. You want to do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
You want me to go first?
Will, you go first, and we'll fill in.
Okay. There's only four. That's the problem with Rushmore. Okay, so obviously Dirk and Staubach are on there. That's right away. I think Aikman has to go. The problem with it's picking Aikman, Emmett, and Irvin is the problem. And then, so Aikman has to go. So Staubach, Aikman, and Dirk. And I got to give Mike Modano some love, too, in here, because he's beloved. It's just that hockey isn't on this level. So, Hold on. I'm going to take Madonna off. Madonna just missed the cut, and I love Mike Madonna. I think it's got to be Michael Irvin. I think he's the fourth.
I was just thinking Michael Irvin. I was like, I'm wondering if he's going to put him on there or not. But like you said, I mean, Dirk's number one for me. I think he would be on there with Staubach, like you said. I'd put Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin. So that would be my four. Matt?
Yeah, so Dirk number one. I'm going to pivot away from you a little bit, Will. I'm going to go with Mike Modano just because he was so huge in bringing that Stanley Cup to Dallas, and he was so huge in turning Dallas into, when it's not a football town, when the Stars are good, it turns into a hockey town, and he had a lot to do with that. I remember watching him when I was in middle school, and that was a really fun time. And but then I'm gonna add Emmitt Smith because he's the best running back ever. And I almost added Nolan Ryan, but he wasn't in a Ranger long enough. So I'll go with Aikman because I never saw Staubach play.
Yeah. And look,
you can't leave off Staubach, boys. Both of you. That's about your youth right there.
Yeah.
Well, I have a hard time since I never saw him play. Like I literally have never seen a game of his played, even on TV. So I don't have a lot of experience with Staubach. I've met him before. He's a very nice man, but I've always been partial to Aikman. So there it is.
And look, this is a little bit of a shift away from our Mount Rushmore stuff, but just branching off of what we were talking about with Dirk and his time in Dallas and what he accomplished and like the tone he set for the franchise. Will, we were going to talk a little bit about the Mavs culture change with Luka and KP, and them kind of taking the torch from Dirk. And we had Mark Cuban on the pod last week. And
wait, I saw that. And you're telling me I got more listens than Mark Cuban? You said most listened to. Does that include Cuban?
Yes, that includes Cuban.
Yeah. That's just how smart Cuban.
Yeah, that is a fact. You got more than Mark Cuban so far. Hey, so far at least he's still. Okay. It's only a week fresh. So
okay, all right.
But we brought this question up to Mark, and on Mavs Media Day, Rick Carlisle talked about it a little bit, and I think the word he used was it was kind of scary to think that these two young kids are, going to take over and kind of reshape the culture. And then when we talked to Mark, he said, "Well, no, I mean they're not going to reshape it. They're going to maintain what was already built with Dirk." And I want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think it's more of a they're going to fit in and maintain what is already there, or are they going to make their own thing with the Mavs?
No, they're going to make their own thing. I'm really surprised to hear Mark Cuban say that. It may just be out of love and respect for Dirk, but that's not possible. It's not possible to maintain the same kind of culture that you had with a guy who was there for that long and is now gone. Now, maybe Mark was talking about it in terms of quality or positive culture, maybe some of the same traits,
Right.
But you wouldn't even want that for them. I wouldn't. If I were the owner or the manager or the coach of the Dallas Mavericks, I would not say, "Hey guys, go be Dirk," or "Go do the exact way Dirk did," even though Dirk did it the right way. You want to learn from him. If you're Luka, you want to learn from him to the limited amount of time that Porzingis had around him. But then you've got to take that stuff that you learn, those virtues, those values, those principles, and you got to make them your own. I just think it's a mistake to try to be somebody else and do it somebody else's way. I'll tell you this. In radio, I study everybody. I really do. I listen to a ton. I don't presume I'm perfect. I don't presume that I'm a finished product. And I listen to, you name them. I have studied them. What do they do well? What do they do poorly? What can I take from them? But none of that, at the end of the day, means I'm not going to be me. You know what I mean? I don't want to be an amalgamation of all these people I've studied. Just because I've taken traits or positive things they do doesn't mean I'm trying to emulate them. In the end, it's all things that I add into my tool belt to just help me be me. And so I want Luka and Kristaps and whoever is the leader of this team. By the way, are we going to put it beyond the pale that Jalen Brunson's one of the leaders of this team?
Yeah.
Whoever that may be makes this culture their own.
Yeah. Matt, what's your thoughts on that? What we heard from Mark last week and, versus what Will just told us?
Well, I agree with Will. I mean, it's not only is it next to impossible to replicate everything that Dirk did, or really anything that Dirk did. He was so unselfish and so, I mean, just one of the hardest workers you'll ever see, and did everything the right way, like Will said. But part of what made Dirk Dirk was that he did figure it out on his own, and he had to go through a horrendous rookie season, and with an inexperienced team, and he had to learn to put those guys on his shoulders and be a leader, and kind of be responsible all on his own and turning around a franchise that had just been destitute for since the 80s. And by the way, Will, I did watch the Mavs in the 90s. I just try to black that out a little bit. It was a very hard time.
Well, I was 5 years old when Dirk came into the league. I didn't really get into NBA basketball. I've been a basketball fan all my life, but I didn't get into NBA basketball until I was around 9 or 10 or so. So, I mean, it's going to be really weird for me starting this season. But, I mean, yeah, it's really hard in today's NBA with all the player movement, and, loyalty just isn't what it used to be. And that's a two-way street. It can go for both the franchises and the players. But, I mean, I agree. It's going to be tough for it to be similar or anything close, really, to what Dirk had with Dallas. And we can hope that Luka stays for, 20 years and that KP and Luka can play together for that long or whatever, like they hope. But, I mean, the reality of it is it's probably not going to happen. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the nature of the modern day NBA, and I don't even want to think about that. I don't think about how it is.
No, look, I'm not saying that he won't stay for a long time. I just think, once it gets up to a point where, like, say Luka's been with the Mavs for, 10 years, 10, 11 years or something, and he still hasn't won a title. I think he would be the type to, kind of entertain moving on more than Dirk would. I'll put it that way. So,
well, this let me tie together in two subjects that are hanging out there. The importance of culture. All right, whether it's Mark or Rick Carlisle or the model of Dirk, the importance of it is. Look, everybody goes, yeah, of course, culture is important. Let me give you an example where it failed, and it's what Matt just brought up. So if you watched basketball in the 90s, if you watched the Mavericks in the 90s, let me tell you something. That 3Js squad was really exciting on paper, and we weren't wrong. Jason Kidd ended up one of the best 30 players of all time in the NBA. I'm probably maybe higher, right?
Yeah,
top 20 players of all time in the NBA. Jim Jackson was a good NBA player. Jamal Mashburn was a good player. And what failed those guys? Like, why didn't it come together? There's a lot of things, by the way, but I think chief among them was culture. It was how they played together, their personalities, how they mixed. And, I hope for the best. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to shake out with Luka and Kristaps and whoever else ends up being a core component of this, Jalen or DeLon or whoever's a core component of this going forward. I don't know how it's going to shake out. I'm optimistic and hopeful, but I also know just exactly how volatile, rare, and important it is as well.
Right. And look, and I mean, that we have a ways off before we have to even start worrying about that. But, I mean, just branching off of that, let's move into this next topic, and we won't have to worry about any of the Mavs' best players leaving anytime soon. But, Will, the preseason just ended. They went 2-3. started out sluggish. I don't know how much of the preseason you were able to watch, or if you didn't. You may not have watched any of it. I don't know, but I mean, what are your initial thoughts getting to see Luka and KP play together? Was it everything you thought it was? Did it change your expectations for this upcoming season?
Well, yes, because really the only game I got to see much of was the Clippers game, the final preseason game. So if you saw that, I would say you're going to be pretty excited, right?
Yeah.
Might it change your expectations? Because that looked awesome. That looked great. Here's the thing. The Mavericks look great on paper. I laid it out today on the Will Cain Show, my predictions for this NBA season. I gave the Mavs the 8th seed in the West. What's their Vegas over-under right now? Is it 41? 40?
Yeah, I think it's right there at 41, maybe 41 and a half.
The Mavericks are popular. There's a lot of hype around the Mavericks. Sites like The Ringer love the Mavericks. Basketball writers who are into analytics and talk about the next big thing have always loved Luka and loved the Mavericks. And all that makes me nervous because generally I think it's not a rule that you need to follow strictly, but I think it's a decent guidepost that if everybody's saying one thing, you at least need to consider the other side of it. If it doesn't live up to expectations, if it doesn't go over 41 wins, if it don't get the 8th seed in the playoffs, it's not a failure. The only thing that matters this season is, do Luka and Kristaps stay healthy and look like exactly what we expect them to be, the core components of a championship level contending team over some period of time. That's really all that matters in the end. Playoffs would be nice, they would be fun, but nobody thinks this is a contending team yet. At the end of this whole thing, I just want to see, are those two guys what we think they can be, the 1 and 2 on a championship team?
Right, and I mean, I think that they will be that, because they showed you flashes all throughout preseason. Now, KP, he wasn't very efficient, but, he's still knocking off rust when a guy hasn't played in, 20 months. He still needs to work his way completely back from that. But, Matt, I want to get your thoughts on this, and then you can lead us into our next topic. But it seems like the one sure thing is that Luka and KP are going to, be a force to be reckoned with if they're healthy. But they need another guy to be consistent, or they need to have a group effort on most nights aside from those two, because you could tell when both of those players were off the court during the preseason, sometimes it would fall off, and then sometimes they'd be okay if a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. was hitting shots. So, I mean, who do you think, really needs to step up this season to keep them on track when those two players aren't on the court?
Well, I think it has to be one of two guys, and it's not Tim Hardaway Jr., because if you have to rely on him, I think you're going to be in trouble. I think it has to be Jalen Brunson and Seth Curry, because of their ability to shoot, their ability to handle the ball, hit big shots. Both of those guys have hit big shots in their career. Jalen, even though the games didn't quote-unquote matter at the end of the year last year, he was a very important part of the team, and he hit a lot of big shots.
When Barea went down with that Achilles injury, he took full advantage of that. And, I mean, just going off what we saw in the preseason, it looked like he got even better over the summer. So, yeah, I'm really excited about him. Will, what are your thoughts on Brunson, or really even if it's not Brunson or Hardaway Jr. or Seth Curry, who do you think needs to step up for this Mavs team aside from Luka and KP?
Okay, first on Jalen Brunson, I am excited. He's one of the guys you can pour hope into. He's one of the guys that you can pour optimism to. I believe that Seth Curry is as well. I made that passing comment a little bit earlier that, who knows, maybe Jalen Brunson is one of the leaders of this team, the culture setters of this team. Look, he was on a national championship team at Villanova, right?
Yes.
And so far, throughout his professional career, I think it looks like Brunson has exceeded expectations every step of the way and continued to. Every time the bar goes up, he goes a little bit higher. Every time we think, oh, is that Brunson's ceiling? He's pushed it higher. And he's doing this still at a young guy in the league. So Brunson could absolutely be one of these guys. But here's my theory. I'll see what you guys think of this. Everybody The answer to your question, Dalton, is everybody. And I don't mean that as a cop-out, though. But it is everybody, because everybody has to play essentially one slot higher than we think they are. So it could have been one of you two. I follow a lot of you guys and others to cover the Mavericks, and I'm not going to remember who tweeted this or wrote this. But the Mavericks are essentially missing that third guy, right? That third component to a championship-level team. Whoever it may be, we're asking guys who really aren't a third-best player on a playoff team or a contending team to be that. Maybe it's Brunson, maybe it's Curry, maybe it's Jackson, maybe it's Wright. Those guys are really good players. Everyone agrees, and they're great rounding out the roster on a good team, a really good team. But like, if we think of Justin Jackson as a fifth or sixth best player on the team, right now I think the Mavericks are asking him to be the fourth best player on the team. They're asking him to be one slot higher than he really belongs. So let me round this out when I say everybody. Luka's got to take one step up. Now, right, he's got to prove to us that he actually is a top 10 player in the NBA.
Yes.
And maybe a little early for that, but that's what we need from Luka. Kristaps has got to show us he's back to being a top 20 player in the NBA, where people thought he was going to be, and we're already starting to put him before he got hurt with the Knicks. And then as you go down the roster, you know, I really don't know who that third best guy is. DeLon Wright? I don't know. He's got to be that, and that's not what we really, like, no objective person would say that DeLon Wright is the third best player on a playoff level team, but we need him to be, or we need Curry to be, or Jackson to be. So I think everybody has to play one step up from what we realistically think they are.
Right. And I mean, my thing is, you always have to hope that some of your younger players can take that next step. And definitely Luka's at the top of that list, but I have a little bit more hope for guys like Justin Jackson and Jalen Brunson to take a little bit of a leap, because, you know, Jackson, he's entering his third year in the league, and he spent the majority of his time in Sacramento. So I'm really curious to see what he can do in a full season under Rick Carlisle, playing with two other guys like Luka and KP, and just see if he can, you know, kind of take that next step. And then Brunson, it's only his second season. He's still young. I mean, I still have hope for guys like Seth Curry and DeLon Wright and Maxi Kleba and Dwight Powell. But, I mean, they're all, around 27, 28 years old, all of them. So, I mean, there's more room for growth with some of the younger guys.
Yeah, but also, I don't know how much we're going to be thinking about this going forward, but the Mavericks have to be prepared to be aggressive if they say, and this is going to lead us into our next topic, but so say the Mavericks near the All-Star break are 4 games above 500, and they say, look, if we just finish out this last couple of months of the season strong, we're a playoff team, and that's going to be attractive in free agency. What do they do to take the next step necessary to make sure that happens? Do they get aggressive in the trade market? I mean, I don't know. So I think that's also a big thing to consider when you're going into the new season, is what's going to be available. Obviously, you know, Buddy Hield, we thought might be on the move. He just signed a new deal. Sabonis just signed a new deal. So it's just going to be really interesting to me to see what kind of moves they can make in the summer or during the regular season, if any at all, because they don't really have a lot of assets that they're going to want to part with either.
Right.
No, they have volume, but I don't know if they have volume in the young, potential-filled upside assets. Look, positions don't matter. I was watching you guys talk with Mike Fisher about what you expect the starting lineup to be, right? And my expectation would be it's Justin Jackson at essentially the 3. I mean, positions at this point, it's hard to even say. What I'm talking about is an off-ball 3-and-D wing, guy who can spot up and doesn't need plays drawn up for him, who you can kick out to and plays really good defense, right? A player like that, while Luka and Kristaps initiate everything. And I'm hoping that Justin Jackson is some version of that. And I know that he shot well in the preseason. I know that he's not a necessarily great defender, but he looks the part. I guess that's the thing in the end. He's young and he looks the part, right? He's tall, he's rangy, he's a 3. And if it's not, this is what I'm getting at. If it's not Justin Jackson, then Matt, to your point, like, what do we do? Because that's the third guy. To me, when you add the third guy to this team and you're saying, okay, Luka and Kristaps are the core components, what finishes it off? Because I actually think the rest of this roster looks great, 4 through 9, 4 through 10, right? That third guy, I think he's got to fill those boxes that I'm assigning to Jackson, right? And I don't know who. I think Danny Green would have been great on this team, right?
Absolutely.
Like a young,
Don't remind me.
a young version of Danny Green, right? But at the same time, look, I thought I know everybody's like, yeah, Zion would look good on any team, but Zion would have been not like just somebody to roll hard, a Draymond type. That's either a 3-and-D or like a Dray, and of course Draymond's one of a kind, so there's no Draymond types. But I do wonder, like at the trade deadline or free agency, what is that third guy? How is this thing rounded out if it does come back that 1 and 2, Luke and Kristaps are right. Now, what finishes out? But by the way, I never thought it was Kimba. I never truly got that as the third component.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, another thing that I don't think is being thought about a lot, I can't even, I told Matt this the other day, but I can't even, like, start thinking about potential trades, like, in real depth. Not at least until we get a few weeks into the season. But, I mean, one thing that people aren't thinking about too, whether the Mavs make the playoffs or not this year, they own this year's pick in the draft. So if they do make the playoffs as a 7 or 8 seed, or if they miss it or whatever, they're worst case scenario, they're going to have a middle of the first round, if not better, pick this year. So I mean, you never know. I mean, that could be used as a trade asset on draft night. They could keep it and maybe find another young guy to grow with the already young core. So I mean, there's a lot more options there. Like you said, as far as the trade assets right now, it's a little bit bare. But I mean, I don't know. You never know. I mean, honestly, I didn't think the Mavericks would end up with Kristaps Porzingis for for what they traded last year, but it ended up happening. So I've learned not to underestimate Donnie Nelson, but we'll see how it goes. Matt?
Well, speaking of Donnie and putting a team together, I mean, this whole roster is almost completely brand new. I mean, yeah, they've got pieces like Jalen and Dwight Powell and Maxey, but as far as the key contributors go, everybody that's going to be a major contributor for the most part has been acquired in the last year. So we don't really know what to expect after a whole offseason of everything that's been going on and being in Rick's system for as long as they have been now, finally with a chance to put everything together over a summer. So now that they have had that, what I want to know is, what is your final Mavs record prediction? And I know you have them you said you had them in the 8 seed, but how many wins do you think it's going to take to get them there?
Yeah. So, let's see if I do this at 44 and 38. Right? My math's right. That's about where I have them. And I think that would do it. I think you're going to have a dogfight with whatever Greg Popovich manages to put together in San Antonio, which will always be better than you expect. I think the Kings are growing and getting better, and I actually think De'Aaron Fox takes a step forward, which will be kind of scary. And who am I forgetting? There's one more right there in that range.
Pelicans with a healthy Zion, maybe?
Nah, I think missing 2 months of Zion is going to be too much for the Pelicans to be in it. Not the Suns yet, not the Pelicans, not the Grizzlies.
I know we're missing somebody. Feels like it.
I know we are too. I know. Right there in that 8, 9, 10 range.
I personally could see the Portland Trailblazers falling down in that range, but I mean, I don't know. I can't think of.
I put the Blazers in as my 7th seed. The thing is, the Blazers are always doubted and always come back and exceed expectations. Like every year, we write them off. And last year, I mean, their playoff performance was one of the best we've seen in some time. No, that's it. That's it.
Timberwolves,
I mean,
maybe.
OKC. Oh, Wolves. Yeah. The Wolves would be in that range. So it would be San Antonio, Sacramento, Minnesota, Dallas fighting them for that 8th seed. And I think Dallas can do it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I did when the full schedule was released, I was looking at it month by month, and how many back-to-backs they have, and who they play, when they play them, and all that stuff. And after I got to the very end of it, I was right there close to where you're at. I put them at 45 and 37 officially. And I mean, anytime we're doing this, and I'm sure you probably did it too, Will, but I mean, you have to put an asterisk on these things, and say if they stay healthy, relatively healthy at least.
Right.
Because I mean, we know Porzingis, at least to start the season, he's not going to play on back-to-backs, and there's 13 back-to-backs for the Mavs this season. So worst case scenario, even if he stays as healthy as we hope, he's probably going to end up missing between 10 to 13 games. But, I mean, I still think they can do it. I think they can win about 45, sneak into the playoffs, and who knows? You get Rick Carlisle in a playoff series, and, anything can happen. Matt?
Yeah, I had him at 43 and 39, so I think we're all pretty much in the same range. I can't remember if I heard it on your show or if I heard it somewhere else. I mean, when I'm at the office, I listen to pretty much everything, so it all kind of runs together. But somebody said that they did have the Warriors making the playoffs, and I never even thought that was a possibility. So if the Warriors drop out, then, I mean, there's going to be teams that drop out, and that's going to give the Mavs opportunity to go up. It's going to be OKC and possibly Golden State. And there's a couple others, I'm sure. San Antonio, yeah. So, there's opportunity there, but I do think they make the 8th seed.
Yeah, it wasn't on my show, but as I was walking out of work tonight, the show that used to follow me, which is the gambling show. Doug Kazarian, the host of Behind the Bets, he and I were talking. We were actually talking about the Mavs and on over-unders. They were having a conversation about over-unders. And these guys were taking the under on the Mavs. And the reason why was the hype train. They just thought it was too much, that the Mavs were too popular. And he brought up the Warriors, to your point. Could the Warriors miss the playoffs? Look, Clay's out for almost the whole season, possibly the whole season. Draymond is going to have to do more offensively. And let's see how D'Angelo Russell fills in, in the meantime. But I still think Steph is amazing, and he's going to go crazy this year.
Matt, I don't remember if it was you or our buddy Kirk Henderson. It may have been both of you guys, but I remember back when NBA 2K came out, and, I don't do much of that My Player stuff. Sometimes I'll go on there and I'll just simulate a full season just to see, what happens. And obviously the Warriors don't have KD anymore, and Clay's injured and everything, and it got to the end, and Steph Curry was he won MVP averaging 42 points a game, and I was thinking about it. I was like, with that roster, I mean, would we really be that shocked if he averaged, 34, 35 points a game?
They're going to have to. There's not too much defense.
But yeah, I could definitely see the Warriors being a team that falls out. I mean, I'm not going to doubt them too much because, I mean, they are champions, and I mean, I could see them fighting and getting into one of those last spots, but it's going to be a fight for the Mavs, and, it finally gets underway tomorrow, real NBA basketball games. So after a couple of weeks, we'll be able to assess this, in greater depth. But guys, we're going to finish out on this topic, and we'll start with you. But tomorrow when the Mavs open against the Wizards, give me one bold prediction for opening night.
One bold prediction for opening night. Okay. Well, you can't do anything with Luka unless I say he's going to go off for like 45.
Yeah.
How about I'm trying to pick between Jackson, I'm going to go Kleba. Is it bold enough to say Kleba has 20? Is that bold?
That would be pretty bold. For opening,
that is.
Hey,
No Dwight Powell. Kleba gets the minutes.
how
about that?
Hey, if that happens, I'll be ecstatic, and I think it'd be safe to say that the Mavs will get a W if that happens. So, Matt, what's yours?
Ooh, so I was thinking I was going to go with Seth, but when Will mentioned Justin Jackson, who is a great friend of our pod, by the way, I think he's gonna go 4 or 5 from 3. He's gonna get about 8 rebounds and finish with between 15 and 18 points, and then everybody can shut up about his rebounding and be excited about him, because I'm really excited to see what he can do, and I want to see how because I'm pretty sure he's going to be the one matched up on Bradley Beal, so I'm really excited to see that too.
Yeah, coming out party for Justin Jackson. I love it. Well, look, I'm going a little bit different direction with mine, and Will, you probably don't know this yet. You haven't been following me long enough to know it yet, but I have this thing every single season, and it's the versus Mavs All-Stars. It's the guys that, the Mavs play that nobody knows about, that just they tend to go off on the Mavs no matter what. And I think Ish Smith is going to be that guy. I hope I'm wrong. I'm just looking at this Wizards roster, and I'm thinking, like, okay, John Wall, he's out. Isaiah Thomas, he's out. So that puts Ish Smith as a third-string starting point guard. And I'm not saying that the Wizards are going to beat the Mavs. I think the Mavs will win handily, but I feel like Ish Smith is gonna go off and keep it close for a little bit.
You went with the other squad for your prediction. Matt and I were here trying to find the third star on the Mavericks tomorrow night, and you're going with Ish Smith?
Man, I can't help it. It's ingrained in my mind. Every time they go and play a team and everybody's saying, oh, well, they're just going to manhandle the Wizards, I'm thinking, like, there's somebody on that team that's going to scare us a little bit. But
I mean, Will, this is science. We're not making this up. You can go down the list. It's DJ Augustine. It's Julius Randle.
Like, thank God that TJ Warren left the Suns and went to a different conference. Like, I got so tired of being torched by that guy. But look, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Will, we really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us talking Mavs as always. And, I mean, we'll have to definitely do it again in the future. We really appreciate it, man.
You bet, guys. It's a new season. It's a new time. This is going to be fun.
Yes, sir. We'll talk to you later, Will. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Will.
All right, guys. Again, that was Will Cain, host of The Will Cain Show on ESPN. He's a repeat guest here, good friend of the podcast, and Matt and I always enjoy having him on to talk Mavs basketball, among other things. So really appreciate him taking the time, and we know you guys enjoy hearing him as well. That's going to do it for another edition of the Step Back and Mavs podcast. We really appreciate all of you who come in and listen to us every single week. We hope you're just as excited for this Mavs season as we are, and it all gets underway for real tomorrow night against the Washington Wizards. So you guys be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to us on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube as well. If you subscribe to the Step Back on YouTube, it automatically enters you for a chance to win 2 tickets to a Mavs game of your choice this season. We're only doing this until we get to 1,000 subs, so we've got close to 400 right now, which means 600 more subscribers can be entered into this contest. So be sure to do that. A lot of good content coming up on our YouTube channel this season. We've got a lot of good stuff up on MavsSI.com, so stick with us there. We'll keep you covered all season long. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of the week. We'll see you next time.
A lot of times feel like I was on the road to nowhere. Tell me why all these people up in my face acting like I know them. Feeling like Luka, Doncic, rookie of the year, I'm the coldest. God speaking through me every single track, prophet like Moses. Asking why I gotta wait till I'm dead to go and get my roses. Feeling like Mavs 2019, grinding unfocused. I used to go to bed at night discouraged, so hopeless. Went through the same pain, my friends chose drugs to cope with. Now I'm reading all these hating comments, man, it got me in motion. I had to whip up the potion, I ain't even with the boast.